We are live. Welcome to episode 8 of the Dynasty Dad podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at Dynasty_DadFF. And back by popular demand, we're having another Smash Accept episode here. And we got 2/3 of the crew here. First, I want to obviously introduce our guys. We have John at Dynasty_Trades. And we have my man Mung at FF_Mung. How you guys doing tonight?
Good. How's it going?
Great. Good to be back with the Smash Accept crew here.
Yeah, no, we're 8 episodes in here, and it's still currently our number one downloaded episode so far. So people want to hear more about Dynasty trades. They want, they got a fever. You know what I'm saying, John?
That's right.
They need
gotta have more trades, baby.
That's right. Today's episode, we geared towards running back landscape. Now's the time of year where a lot of owners have different philosophies when it comes to what they do with their running backs. How should they approach going into the season? I had Scott Connor on the other day, and he was really talking about, what things are going to look like for this season with running backs. But I want to ask both of you guys, what is your particular running back philosophy when it comes to, right now we're 8 days away from the NFL season. What are you guys doing with your running backs? What are some, all year we're trying to make those dynasty trades, but how do you guys view running back trades in dynasty? And are you guys trying to make any here last minute?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm putting a lot of focus on running back right now. For me, running back is the most volatile position in terms of value. So you have to stay on top of it and always look to be making moves. And, a couple of things I'd recommend for the listeners here. And again, you got to have more trades, baby. Got to have more trades.
Love it.
The first I'm trying to trade for rookie running backs, maybe second-year running backs before they pop. And obviously, you're trading away running backs that are aging before they fall off the cliff. And running back rookie value can skyrocket after their first year. So you just basically have to make sure you're picking the right ones. And, Mike, a lot of my favorite guys. I have JT and Dobbins were both the kind of leading the train for those guys, the hype train. But I have a ton of shares of those guys, and you got to love the top 5 rookie running backs that came out. So that's really one. And the other one is give yourself as many options as you can with running backs this season, especially if you're competing, and of course for redraft. I think the season's going to be absolutely insane. I mean, it already is. Look at Fournette, Geis, Montgomery. The hits keep coming. I actually did a Twitter thread that looked at all the running back backup situations for all 32 teams. So you could check that out for a little info.
Yeah, I love that. I saw that on Twitter. If you guys are not following these guys, you need to, because they're putting out content all the time. And that was great because with COVID-19 and everything that's going on, you're going to want as many running back shares as possible and go out and see what all the landscapes are and what the depth charts look like and who the handcuffs are to own. So, yeah, I thought that was a great piece.
Yeah, and I mean, that's it. I threw out some of my favorite guys too, and with trades, see if you can get these guys as a throw-in. Just recently, I've got Chase Edmonds, Tony Pollard, and Boston Scott thrown into deals that I was working. Those are some of my favorites. So yeah, those are a couple of the recommendations I'd give right now on managing running back.
All right. What about you, big guy? What about you? What are you thinking as far as running backs? I know, we have some similar type views here. Do you echo some of the things he has, or do you have a different type philosophy?
Yeah, definitely. And this close to the season, really, even in my dynasty leagues, I'm taking on more of a redraft mentality. And that's part of the reason I'm lower on guys like DeAndre Swift, right? A lot of draft pundits had him as the number 1 talent at running back in this rookie class prior to the NFL draft. But at the end of the day, situation matters regardless of talent. Unless you think that Swift is an otherworldly talent, a tier above all these other guys, then it really does come down to situation. That's why Clyde Edwards-Helaire shot up the rankings. And that's why I'm kind of down on him, because in redraft for 2020, right, he missed some time with an injury, and they're saying it may cost him snaps early on. And even when he does get ready to come back, I don't think that, he's going to see a huge workload regardless. And really, if he doesn't produce as a rookie, that's going to decrease his dynasty value as well. And really, you're trying to project forward, 1 year from now, what are these guys going to be worth if you're not contending? And if you are contending, can they help me win now? And if the answer to both those questions is no, then, you need to move them down your rankings. And I have Swift probably far lower than a lot of people in my dynasty rankings. And then, of course, you mentioned the handcuffs, guys like Pollard. Even I would echo the lesser known guys. So someone that I picked up a lot this past week was Cordero Patterson. He may or may not see a bigger role with David Montgomery out for a couple weeks, but he's pretty much free to acquire, or at least far cheaper. Other names I would throw out, and of course these are for deeper leagues where you have you're not dropping high value prospects for guys like this, but Mike Boone. If Dalvin Cook does hold out, we don't know that Alexander Madison is going to be a workhorse per se. And then you've got, like Devine Azigbo. I've heard his name mentioned a lot. It's unlikely that it's just going to be Rykel Armstead, even if Chris Thompson does get hurt. So basically just finding value in those deeper names as well, instead of the obvious handcuffs.
Yeah, I like that, because a lot of most of my leagues are 25, 30. I play even a couple that are 35, but not all dynasty owners are playing in leagues that deep. Some of them are 20. I'm in the FFPC, and in the Pros versus Joes, that's only 20-man roster. So guys like Devin Azigbo, you're not worried about. But if you got a 35-man roster and you can add him on there, more power to you. Because we want to know what's going on there in Jacksonville. We want to believe it's Rykel Armstead, Chris Thompson, but I mean that situation is wide open. Which segments into, our next topic is, and he's not here today, but CJ, who's now formerly Ivid, but now he's at FF Day Trader, posted this, and I really liked it. He showed two different running backs. RB1 was a guy that versus average stacked boxes, he had 16% of his carries from there. Average offensive line, 24th. Yards per carry, 4.2. Receptions per game, 2.5. RB2 on the flip side, 38% of the time facing stack boxes, 20th ranked O-line, 4.0 yards per carry, and 4.8 receptions per game. So you look at those two, numbers are very similar there. He's in a different type situation. But those two guys, and both of you guys already know the answer, but it's Joe Mixon and Leonard Fournette. We're looking at two guys out of the same draft class with different type of, obviously value in the dynasty community before the news that just dropped. Why don't you guys talk to me first about Joe Mixon? Obviously, Joe Mixon gets his big contract. Joe Mixon is now paid. He's there through the next 5 years with the Bengals. What does that do for his dynasty stock for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it really shoots him up, because part of what factors into dynasty is the long-term outlook, right? And I think we talked about this a little bit last show on why I was a bit lower on Alvin Kamara than others. Even prior to this news of the potential holdout or the threat of the Saints trading him, we knew that he was heading into a contract year, and we knew that that would be a potential issue. And it's kind of being prepared to deal with these sorts of situations, and having a solid 4-year contract, not only Mixon, but Derrick Henry as well, really helps shoot them up into, the top 10, top 12 of dynasty assets, at least in one quarterback formats, because especially with running back, situation really matters, and you want those workhorses who are guaranteed touches for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, now you got a guy, Joe Mixon. He's going to be there with Joe Burrow, an improved offensive line. A lot of exciting things are, going on there in Cincinnati. And Joe Mixon, I feel like, has to move up, those boards. And something in Dynasty is that stability, that uncertainty of Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara right now is a little bit scarier. So Joe Mixon's got to move up there. On the flip side, John, why don't you tell us a little bit about Leonard Fournette? I mean, obviously we get the shocking news that he's cut by the Jaguars. What are you doing with Leonard Fournette now? How do you feel about this situation?
Yeah, exactly my point on running backs. It's just so volatile. And first of all, I agree with Monk. Mixon has to shoot up your rankings. He's got to be considered up there now, maybe even in dynasty running back 6, 7, 8 range. Some might even have him higher. But yeah, for Fournette, you had to kind of see this coming, right? I mean, there's all this talk. Really, I moved most of my Fournette shares before last season because you could tell he was kind of on the outs with the organization. And I was always a little bit worried about the negative game scripts, and he actually got a lot more targets than I expected. It's really even while we're doing this pod here, I mean, news is coming in on Fournette, and so he's a volatile stock right now. I mean, when Fournette owners hear about the Bucs, everyone gets excited, and so he has the potential. I mean, the talent is still there, Mike. I think that I mean he was what was he, like the 4th overall pick when he came out?
Yep.
So,
and he's the one of only 3 guys to finish as an RB1 each of the last 3 seasons from that class. It's him, McCaffrey, and Kamara. I mean, those guys, he does put up RB1 numbers. He's right there on that fringe, and it's just a matter of what I like to do, and my philosophy with running backs right now is to pivot back from some of these guys, because when they get to that end of that contract, and I think you alluded to it, but the term that I'm really using a lot is pivot now. So Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette, they're getting to the end of those rookie deals. Now is the time to flip them, get a little bit younger, maybe add a little bit on there, get Taylor, get those kind of guys. And we're going to talk about some trades here, because everybody wants them trades. We're talking about smash accept. And if you guys put hashtag smash accept, which many of you are already doing, we are going to do this on a regular basis here, talk about your trades, go over them.
All over it.
Exactly. So if you guys tag any of us, make sure you guys are putting in hashtag smash accept. That way we can look at all of them and go over them and talk about them as a group, because we want to give you guys the best insight possible. That includes things like league size. Is it 10? Is it 12? Is it 14? That makes a big difference when you're talking about positional advantages and things like that. The direction of your team. I see a lot of them, they just put 12-team PPR. Are you contending? Are you rebuilding? Are you looking to retool? All those things help us give you the most educated answer. Is it PPR? I would hope so. It's 2020. My actual home league actually just switched to PPR this year, and they were baffled by it, which was fine with me because I got Chris Godwin at the 307, so I was pretty pumped. Is it a tight end premium? Is it start 2 tight ends? Is it 0.25 PPC? I mean, there's literally so many things out there. So the more information, the better that you guys can give it, because we want to give you guys a shout out as the listeners. And the first trade we're going to talk about comes from @Caswell_Wyatt. He says, someone convinced me not to trade Alvin Kamara for Jonathan Taylor straight up in Dynasty. I'm extremely tempted to pull the trigger in a 12-team PPR. I'm very solid all around with a good makeup of ages. So that's a great question, because he said, we talked about this in my trying to think of the actual rebuild type philosophy. If you guys want to assess your team, you got to see where the core ages are. It's okay to have some veterans, some rookies, mix it in, but you guys got to understand where you're at. So right now we're looking at Alvin Kamara straight up for Jonathan Taylor. Kamara doesn't have a contract. John, why don't we go with you first, because we obviously know where Mung's going to go on this one.
Yeah.
But the Twitter poll has it at 57% Kamara, 43% Jonathan Taylor. Is this a move you're willing to make now, or do you guys need a little bit on top?
Yeah, so I actually would make the move, but it's actually not exactly my style. I mean, a lot of people do like the straight up trades, but just to your earlier point, Mike, kind of what I've been saying is see if you can get Jonathan Taylor plus, right? I mean, Kamara is established. He's well known. He's been ranked higher. Jonathan Taylor, we know his value could potentially skyrocket, like I said, but most of the traders out there are going to be willing to package something along with Jonathan Taylor. So get him to package a second rounder, get him to throw in another player that could pop as well. Or perfect. Like I said earlier, maybe one of those running back handcuffs. Now, again, we know what Mong's going to say here, but I'm actually with him, his inevitable answer on this. And I'm actually getting concerned I have maybe a little bit too much love for Jonathan Taylor. But, for me, he's got everything. I know there's still a few concerns about mileage and his ability to catch on the backfield, but I think that's going to come. And I love that O-line, perhaps the best O-line in the league. And I just think he's going to put up monster numbers. It's inevitable for me. He may not start the year out, but as the starter, but I'm even in game 1 against Jacksonville, I probably got him in my starting lineup. I think you have to, just because of the ceiling that this guy represents. So, and I'll let maybe Mong talk to all the concerns on Kamara. I'm probably a little bit higher on Kamara still than Mong is, and I think that some of the medical stuff that just came out was a little bit overblown. But yeah, Breeze has probably got a year left, and where is really Kamara's ceiling going to be long term is the question, right? So,
I mean, we're looking at 3 straight years of an RB1, and I feel like last year obviously was an enigma because of his touchdown. He's due for some positive touchdown regression. I think, to your point, what I like to do with this is, like we said on the show before, insulated trades. So you get
right.
Jonathan Taylor and maybe a N'Keal Harry or a 2nd-round pick, or there's always get that little bit of extra if you feel like that there's the perceived difference rather than a straight up pivot. Mung, are you willing to just straight up pivot from Kamara to Jonathan Taylor?
Right. And to your guys' point, I think obviously you want to extract as much value as you can when you're making these trades. Perceived value often can get you that extra piece, but at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily push for it if you believe, that you're still winning that trade, right? So as you guys alluded to, I do prefer Taylor straight up over Kamara. But that's not to say that I would necessarily sell Kamara for Taylor right this second, right? Because the perceived value on Kamara is low right now with the concerns that the Saints may trade him, that they may not come to an extension before the season, with the possibility that he'll sit and miss some games in a holdout. So really, you're not selling him for proper value if you believe that the Saints will eventually come to at least a 1-year agreement with him.
Yeah, and he was at practice today. Said him and Sean Payton had a nice conversation. I think that's a great point. Now is not the time to sell Alvin Kamara. Now is not the time to sell Leonard Fournette because of the news is where it is. But let's say he inks a deal here. He gets 4 years or 5 years like Joe Mixon. That's the time right now to switch him. And a couple months ago, you could have got Jonathan Taylor in a first. Now you're probably lucky to get Jonathan Taylor and a second for Kamara. And I feel like that would be the time to move if that's not a guy that you're totally into. So don't pull that trigger straight up. Wait till the actual positive news comes out, because I do believe they do make a deal here. And once that happens, you get a little bit of more, like Mung said, some perceived value. So that's great.
Yeah.
All that being said, too, I would then do my best to sell Kamara for Taylor plus once they come to an agreement, because, as you said, Breeze probably has a year left, right? So even if the Saints retain Kamara, we really don't know a whole lot about that offense going forward, who the quarterback under center is going to be. So there are still a lot of risks there, and I would still be willing to make that deal.
Yeah, totally spot on. I would just add to that. I actually do think they could get a deal done, and a lot of what we're hearing in the news right now, try not to overreact to it. I think that a lot of times these are negotiation tactics. The Saints will float something out there that they're willing to trade them to help bring down the asking price a little bit, right? That's kind of how this business works. So if you can hold, Mung's absolutely right. I would.
And he's again not on here, but FF Day Trader said he recently just dealt Alvin Kamara for Miles Sanders and Jerry Jeudy, which I'm taking that all day long. And then he actually cascaded. Actually, it was Miles Sanders in a second, and then he cascaded that to Jerry Jeudy and Jonathan Taylor. So he ended up getting Jonathan Taylor, Jerry Jeudy. Sometimes you can look at pieces of a trade, and we're trying to talk about getting that extra, that last piece of the puzzle. But it's something that you got to think outside the box. You got to say, well, I might not want Miles Sanders, but I really want Jonathan Taylor. If I trade Kamara, I can get Sanders plus, then I can move down again and get Jonathan Taylor plus, and he ends up getting Jonathan Taylor, Jerry Jeudy, and a 2nd-round pick for Alvin Kamara, and that's how dynasty winning is done.
Love it.
Got to get a cowbell for that one. So
yes.
our next one comes from @Colton_Roberts with an extra S at the end. It's 12-team Superflex, PPR, no premium. He said it is a rebuilding team. So which side are you taking here? So interesting deal. First side, Jonathan Taylor again, Tyler Boyd, and Blake Jarwin. Again, no tight end premium, so it's just straight up. For Nick Chubb, Brandon Cooks, Antonio Gibson, and a 22 third. Very close on Twitter. Jonathan Taylor side at 53%, Nick Chubb side at 47%. If you're rebuilding, what are you guys interested in here?
Yeah, I think this trade is pretty fair overall. The value is pretty balanced for the most part. I think Jarwin and Gibson I would value fairly similarly. They're both prospects with upside. And it, as you said, it helps that he gave us additional information here, right? Because knowing that he is rebuilding, he doesn't need to worry about whether Taylor is going to see a ton of snaps right off the bat, and whether Tyler Boyd's going to produce with Joe Burrow. For me, even if I were contending, I might be tempted to take the Taylor side of this, but especially in a rebuild, I definitely would.
Yeah. What about you, John?
Yeah, I'm with Mong. Again, I just hyped JT here, so I'll try not to gush about him anymore. A lot of people actually compare him to Nick Chubb because he's just that great all-around pure runner and not quite as known for pass catching. But for me, that was kind of the growing concern with Chubb at the end of last year with Kareem Hunt there. And he really down the stretch with Hunt in play, Chubb was kind of more of a running back too. And I think you got to look at he's 24 now. JT's coming to the league at 21. The guy could just now barely drink legally. I'm a big Tyler Boyd fan, of course, with that offense on the rise with Joe Burrow. And frankly, I think that Blake Jarwin is going to be wide open a lot with defenses trying to cover Cooper, Gallup, and my boy CeeDee Lamb. So I'm with Monk. This was actually a pretty even trade, and you might even could argue the other side had a little bit more value. I really like Antonio Gibson. Cooks could surprise. But for me, I'm going to go after the guy that I want the most in the deal, and that's JT, and go from there.
And that's what we really want to hammer home to you guys as a listener is this is how you make a pivot move. You're taking Jonathan Taylor and you're moving from Nick Chubb. You just got 3 years younger and a higher perceived upside. Tyler Boyd and Brandon Cooks, I prefer Boyd. There isn't anything on the other side that's really outlandish where you're like, man, I got to keep Nick Chubb. If you can get Jonathan Taylor, get 3 years younger, a younger, more exciting version of Nick Chubb at this point, I think you got to do it. And I think this trade in a year from now is going to look pretty lopsided. So good move there, Colton. The next one, another rebuilding deal here. We're looking at it's a 12-team PPR Superflex tight end premium, 6-point passing touchdowns. So he has Saquon and OJ Howard. He is getting, and this one blew my mind, but I just want to talk about the idea of it. He's getting Kenny Galladay, J.K. Dobbins, Gardner Minshew, and 21 seconds. Now, this one is definitely a hashtag smash accept, but this is the kind of move here. Talk to me a little bit about if you have Saquon Barkley. We always say on the Dynasty Refinery, anything for Saquon, but this seems like the type of move that can really take you from rebuild and put you to a point where you're ready to contend.
Yeah, I'll start there. That's a smash accept, baby. Smash accept. And yeah, just like you said, you can just get so much for Saquon Barkley right now, and not only start rebuilding, but I mean you're competing right away. I think that look, J.K. Dobbins, I absolutely love. I said that already. I think that his Harbaugh came out and said we're gonna have a hard time keeping this kid off the field in season one, even with Ingram there, and if he really shows, I think that she could really argue, and I don't know if this is a hot take, but he might have been the best overall running back coming out of this class in terms of the ability to run inside, the speed to break a long one. He can catch out of the backfield. What he's been doing in terms of the receiving game in the practices. Mike, I saw you posted some of those highlights today. The kid is so talented all around. And
that got me excited, man. Watching that. I mean, we believe it already, and sometimes we get those hype videos on Twitter, but I'm like, man, this kid's going to be something special. And you're getting Kenny Galladay, who's a wide receiver one, on top of J.K. Dobbins. And I feel like you're almost getting a free Gardner Minshew and 2 extra 21 seconds just because of this, because you're giving up Saquon and because of that name cachet. And again, another pivot to move yourself down from Saquon to J.K. Dobbins. And I know, a couple months back, I did a thing where I was talking about the 2022, what the running back, landscape is going to look like. And I said, it's going to be McCaffrey, Saquon, and I had Dobbins at 5 overall. I feel like he has that much upside. And you alluded to it. Pass catching chops, he caught over 26 balls every year at Ohio State, over 2,000 total yards. He's a touch. I mean, he literally is the most complete back there, him and Swift. And he's perfect for that RPO system.
Perfect fit. Perfect fit
Absolutely.
for Baltimore. Yeah, and again, Kenny G, I think, is about to get another contract. Pull out the saxophone. You
That's
got to love
right.
Kenny G. And now that Stafford's back, I think that offense is underrated. And we all love Minshew, like you said, especially after he came out with this video with the throwback to Karate Kid. I know
I
you're
know.
a Cobra Kai.
I was
guy,
watching
Mike.
Cobra Kai when we got things started. So, when you play the old school Karate Kid, you're the best around. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a
All day.
classic.
And that was sent in from Black Sheep _FF. Do you agree also that, I mean, he got an absolute smash accept on that one?
Yeah, definitely a smash accept, as you guys said. I won't just kind of repeat everything because we already know, we love Galladay, we love Dobbins. So I'll add two other quick notes before we move on here. One thing is that just because this is a great, great deal for him in a rebuilding aspect doesn't mean that the other guy lost this trade. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Because we don't know what that guy's team looks like if he has ample talent to spare and he's, in win now and he's pushing in all the chips. Just because you got an overpay doesn't mean it's a bad deal. So I hate when I see trades vetoed because someone doesn't like it. Right?
No, do not be that guy. I do not allow vetoes in any of my leagues. It ruins the integrity of the league. Because then you get one guy. I was in a league one time, and the guy asked me to do this trade, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Then in the group chat, he made another group me and didn't put my name in there. And he goes, guys, veto this deal. I don't want to do it. I changed my mind. And those kind of things can ruin a league quickly. It just makes everybody have complete animosity towards each other. And it's just, hey, who vetoed that? You start thinking those. If you guys are in leagues, do not have a veto. I mean, if you have poor owners, get better owners. But honestly, do not allow vetoes. Every single league I've had in that has them, it just ruins the entire process.
Yeah, definitely. And then my other real quick note too is once he makes this deal to sell Saquon Barkley, I would then go ahead and try and flip Gardner Minshew for a 2021 first, maybe even more during the season, because I do believe that Minshew has the talent to be a starter in the league. But I also think that Jacksonville is very much set on drafting Trevor Lawrence or another similar QB talent in next year's class.
Trevor.
If you cut Leonard Fournette days before the season, you are ready for. I've been on a bunch of podcasts and everybody talks about Minshew, and I think he has the ceiling this year to be a back end QB1, to that QB 15 range, because it's going to be so much negative game script. And now there's no running game to go with it. So he's going to have to sling it around. We all love DJ Chark. So, everything, all systems go ready for him. But Minshew is going to be in a bad spot here where if he starts playing some nice games, he's not going to be that starter next year unless they win 6 to 8 games. And with trading their best defensive end, getting rid of pretty much everything that's in place from that playoff team, it's going to be tough sledding. So yeah, he can flip some.
Look at Josh Rosen.
Exactly. Josh Rosen's the best guy to bring in to get your team to 101. Next deal comes in from Fit Sheehan. He sent in 12-team PPR, doesn't have anything else directionally or anything like that. Judging off the deal here, you got Saquon for Mike Evans and Derrick Henry. So I'm assuming the Derrick Henry and Mike Evans side, is both sides that actually could be all in, but must be wide receiver needy. But they're at 58%, Saquon at 42%. So again, just trying to point out that Saquon Barkley can get you an RB1 and a wide receiver 1. Mung, I know you're pretty big on Mike Evans, with Tampa Bay down there. What do you think of this deal?
Yeah, this is another hashtag smash accept to me. I'm shocked that someone would pay these two premium assets. This deal might have made sense to me before Tennessee signed Derrick Henry long-term, right? If you were concerned, let's say, that he had one more year with Tennessee and then you really don't know if he's going to fall off. But now with Henry guaranteed, through 2023, or at least through the next couple of years, they can't really afford to cut him based on how the contract's structured. I don't understand this at all. I don't see a huge gap in production between Barkley and Henry in 2020. And then, as you said, I am very high on Evans. I think he has the potential to be the top scoring wide receiver this year with Tom Brady in town. And I think this is a huge win for the Evans and Henry side.
And you're not hearing that narrative a lot on Twitter. You know, I mean, I love Chris Godwin, but you can love Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. I feel like Mike Evans is getting discounted in it's 6 straight seasons over 1,000 yards. He's almost a lock for 10 touchdowns. And everyone seems to say that Tom Brady can't throw it downfield, but he's still going to get peppered in that red zone. I mean, Mike Evans,
I think,
you had 2 wide
Mike
receiver
Evans
ones there.
He could lead the league in touchdowns this year. I don't think that I'm overstating that. Mike Evans could lead the league in touchdowns. You heard it here first. I'm a huge Godwin guy, but yeah, I can't wait to watch this Tampa Bay offense, especially when Leonard Fournette joins up here.
Oh, don't put that juju.
He's gonna kill the Rojo shares. You know, that's the thing I want to talk about with Leonard Fournette is everyone's really worried about, Leonard Fournette's value is not, as soon as this is done, right now you can buy him for a 2nd-round pick. I don't think anybody's selling for that. If you are an owner, hold him until he gets a landing spot. But he's going to ruin an RB2 somewhere, and I'm looking at my draft boards and I'm looking at my teams and I'm like, man, if he goes, there was some Eagles rumbling. That's got to hurt Miles Sanders. There was the Bears rumbling. That kills David Montgomery. All these different RB2s that were in that area. Leonard Fournette's going to, he's going to kind of mess up some value, but it's a 1-year deal, pretty much wherever he goes. It's likely going to be a 1-year kind of prove it deal. So don't all of a sudden, if he goes to the Eagles, start selling your Miles Sanders shares. I feel like people overreact on this. They're going to overreact and sell Leonard Fournette too cheap. They're going to overreact when he goes to the Bears and say, well, David Montgomery's dead. I'm going to trade him. Just be patient, let it play out and see what happens here, because I feel like there's going to be a major overreaction once this goes down.
Yeah. I'm calling it Fournette roulette. I may apply for,
I like that.
for royalties on that one.
There you go.
So yeah, you definitely take advantage of any other nervous owners out there on this one, but keep a close eye on it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to. There's people that are doing that with Kamara right now. They believe that they're going to trade him. Someone I saw on Twitter, someone asked me a question. I'm afraid they're going to trade Alvin Kamara to the Jaguars. What do I do? And I'm like, they're not going out and trading for Alvin Kamara. They're trying to tank it out. So don't make any overreactions. Just relax. Let it play out. We're 8 days away from the season. Now you've built those dynasty rosters the way you want them. Don't blow them up just because of just overhype. The next one comes in from @JE13FF13. He didn't put a team number, how many are in the league. He just said his PPR. For this exercise, why don't we call it a 12-team league? Most leagues are 12-teamers. We're looking at Zeke, again, another pivot here, Christian Kirk, and Bryan Edwards for DeAndre Swift, Allen Robinson, and DK Metcalf. John, it's all your time.
Yeah, I'm all over this trade. So if you're listening to the pod, make that trade if you haven't already. And a lot of people might say, wait, what are you talking about? Zeke is clearly the best guy in this deal. And I would agree with you. And I think that in 2020, you can make an argument that Zeke, might just be just behind CMC in that number 2 slot, maybe even over Saquon. But what you're getting in return here, 2 major upgrades at wide receiver. Nothing against Christian Kirk and Bryan Edwards, and I think at this point I'm agreeing with you. The Bryan Edwards hype might be a little bit overboard, but Mike, I don't need to convince you on DK, but huge upgrade. I mean, this is multiple tiers above Bryan Edwards. Same with Allen Robinson over Christian Kirk. That's a clear wide receiver 1 in my mind, regardless of the quarterback in Chicago. And in Swift, I mean, and again, in a long-term deal, a lot of people, again, had him as the top overall running back in terms of pure talent before the landing spots. I think we might even be exaggerating a little bit that Detroit landing spot may not be that bad. Carry-on's still walking around in a brace. I think he said that he's won with the brace. Like, whoa, okay, that's a massive red flag.
It is a mental thing. We've talked about several doctors about that. It's more of just a mental stabilization. And this is a great deal because you're getting an RB2, wide receiver 1 who's totally disrespected in Allen Robinson, a potential, wide receiver 2 this year, maybe a wide receiver 1 in the future, DK Metcalf. Let's be honest, I don't hate on Christian Kirk, but he's never going to be more than a wide receiver 2. He's never going to to me, he's a wide receiver 3. And Bryan Edwards has had an injury history, and everybody's kind of overhyping him because of, getting a lot of positive feedback from Raiders camp. But you're moving down off of Zeke to get 2 massive upgrades. Mung, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think this one's a little closer to me than you guys seem to believe. For me, Elliott is getting kind of forgotten. He's in that Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey tier for me. He's in a just loaded offense with probably not going to see any tacklers when they're trying to just defend all 3 wide receivers in Dallas there. And I do like Kirk more than you guys, I feel. I think that we could see similar seasons between Kirk and Metcalf this year. I think both are slated for, I think I have them around like 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, something around that. And then I am lower, as we talked about a little bit earlier, on Swift than a lot of people. So for me, I think this really just comes down to team need, whether you need that top 3 running back or you need a lot of that wide receiver depth.
And that's what I love about dynasties. We all have different takes and different mentalities on that, And for me, DK Metcalf putting up 900 yards and close to 10 touchdowns as a rookie, I feel like he is going to explode. So I have a totally different mentality of what I think DK Metcalf is based off of, and compared to what you have. But that doesn't mean either one of us are wrong until they actually go out there and play it. It's just sometimes it's perceived upside, but I feel like Zeke starting to get up there in the carries a little bit. And you said it in the beginning that DeAndre Swift isn't your guy. You don't love the situation. You like the running back, but you don't love the situation, and it sounds like John and I are a little bit more coming around on that Detroit situation where we were talking about you could get him at 107, which seemed like a complete steal in Superflex. And now I think people are starting to come around there a little bit, but put those things out there. If you're going to trade Zeke, and I tell this to all the guys that, come up and they ask for questions. If you're going to trade Zeke or you're going to trade Hopkins or you're going to trade a stud, you got to shop them around to the whole league. You can't just throw out dry offers. Get that conversation going. And we talk about it all the time. Know your league mates. Get out there. Get as much communication as possible. I love this deal, but it's, again, 54% to 46% on Twitter. So still voted pretty good, but I think, Jeff, you made out pretty well there.
I will say real quick, though, not to get too sidetracked, but just sell Bryan Edwards. If I had him anywhere, I would be selling him right now. The trades I'm seeing him go for are absolutely nuts.
Yeah, Antonio Gibson and him have the most crazy Twitter value right now as far as hype news. I mean, Bryan Edwards is going for a first. I saw Antonio Gibson go for multiple firsts the other day. These things are just – pump the brakes a little bit. Yeah, it was my guy, Dynasty Bro Vic, over to Dynasty Bros FF. Great podcast. If you guys haven't heard him, check him out. But yeah, he got 2 firsts, a 21 and a 22 first for Antonio Gibson on some. But if you can get first for any of these guys, Scott Connor actually said with Bryan Edwards, if you can, or Brandon Ayuk, if you get camp news from these guys this year, sell them for a first. Because this year, we have no idea what's going to happen. We don't know if the season might last 8 games, and those firsts, are going to be much more valuable than the player. We don't know how many guys are going to be out with COVID where, you guys might not like Bryan Edwards, but you definitely like first-round picks. There's nobody who doesn't like a first-round pick. And he was advocating selling players. Even if you're a contender, if somebody offers you a first for Adam Thielen, do it because you're going to be able to buy him back cheaper next year or by the end of the year if things are going that way. So, and it was interesting to talk to him because he was talking about he thinks more players are going to come out in 2021 because of the news, and the uncertainty of college football. So make those moves, and sell on those camp news. We always talk about it. Go ahead.
I was going to just quick, just expand on that for that point again. And I think we talked about this in the first Smash Accept pod. Definitely get those 2021 picks, but see if you can pick up those second rounders. If you look at rookie drafts this year, towards the end of the second round was Antonio Gibson, Bryan Edwards, and another guy like Joshua Kelly. And sometimes even into the early third rounds of 12-team rookie drafts. And now you're already flipping those before the season starts for first rounders. Come on.
That's a win.
So, yeah, if you get them to toss in a second rounder in what I believe will be a loaded 21 class, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to do the exact same thing. And that is how you win in Dynasty.
Well, there's a reason they're first rounders. I mean, the hit rate on first rounders is in that 50% range, and on the second rounders, it's about 30%. You know, and a hit rate means that they become a wide receiver one or RB1 for one season. So, you know, you drop down to 30%, you drop into the third round, you're talking 12%. So if you can cash in on those guys, statistically speaking, if you get a third rounder who looks good and you can hype him for a second, or you move it in there even for a first, you're winning, you know, statistically speaking, most of the time, you know, because it's only 12%. The next one comes from at Adam G 703-207-33. I thought last time we had Smash Accept, we had the longest set of numbers, but Adam G takes the cake. I mean, he's got them all here. No number of teams on there. He loves numbers in his Twitter handle, but he doesn't tell us how many teams there are. But let's just call it 12 again. This one, again, another fun pivot. Christian McCaffrey or Nick Chubb, James Conner, and a 2021 first, since there's nothing there. What I try to do, and I don't know about you guys, let's talk about first rounders here. When I make a trade, you know, you want to look to see if it's early or if it's mid or if it's late. But if you're not sure if it's in that mid to late, I call it 109, 110 in my head. You know, I want to make sure if I'm trying to make that deal, I don't want to think in my head, man, that's a mid first, that's 106. 106 can swing either direction depending on how that team pans out. You know, so I always try to say I'm trading for something in that 109 value instead of 106, because then I have lesser chance to actually fail on a trade.
Yeah, I was going to add to that too. Be careful on even some of these trade analyzers that are out there, even on some paid subscription sites, because they'll value them all the same. Like you put in a 2021 first, and they're all created equal.
Yeah.
And so don't give your trade partner too much credit for the picks either, right? So Mike's spot on with that advice.
Yeah, big difference between Trevor Lawrence and like Najee Harris next year. You know, there's going to be a big value difference.
That's why you want to come to the Smash Accept guys right there.
Boom. keep hitting us up. But this one here, let's break it down here a little bit. Mung, we'll start with you. Christian McCaffrey, or do you want Chubb, Conner, and a first? So you get an instant backfield here and a first-round pick, or are you still taking that wide receiver one, RB1 cheat code of Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah, I would sell for the package. The only way I would take McCaffrey here is if you are absolutely stacked and, you know, you've got Barkley already, 3 elite wide receivers, and Kelsey and Mahomes, and McCaffrey's the last piece of the puzzle to a title. But, I mean, let's take a look at the other side here. Chubb and Conner could both be top 10 running backs this year if Conner stays healthy. And it's just a lot of eggs in one basket when you put them in these elite players, even if it's a golden basket like McCaffrey. All it takes is, you know, an ankle sprain, an ACL tear, and you're losing a ton of value there. With the first on top, I think this is a pretty easy call.
I think that it's very interesting and why we talk about sending in your number of teams. If this is a 10-team league, it's McCaffrey. Don't even question it. Not even a question, because the talent pool in a 10-team league, you want them studs. You want those guys. You got to put them out there. And, you know, Conner might not start for you in a 10-team league, depending on where you're at. That also changes the value of the first-round pick. I have my own opinions here, but John, what do you think? McCaffrey, or are you taking the package?
Yeah, well, I can't agree with Long on everything here. So I'll mix it up here. I actually would hold McCaffrey on this one. And I say that knowing that the other side probably has arguably more value. I'm just, with James Conner, I think he could be okay this year. He's got the health issues, though, and I think he's probably out by this time next year. We already talked about Chubb. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Well, before, you know, now we're in that redraft mentality a little bit more. You know, you see that on Twitter. 3 months ago, you couldn't get a second-round pick for James Conner. You know, so if you say Nick Chubb, a second-round pick and a first for McCaffrey, it's just saying no way. You know, there's no way that's kind of where you're going. One thing I've been telling everybody on Twitter right now is if you're moving off McCaffrey or Barkley, you make sure you're getting Jonathan Taylor, CEH, Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, or one of those kind of guys. So, you know, we were up there on that earlier deal where we were kind of both out on Chubb. We were kind of moving that. And maybe the move here is make a cascading trade. Trade Christian McCaffrey for Chubb, Conner, and a first, then trade Chubb for Jonathan Taylor in a second. You know, and now all of a sudden you're getting Taylor, Conner, a first, and a second. You know, and it's all a matter of personal preference for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of McCaffrey valued at about 4 firsts. And so that's another way to kind of look at it. You got one in the deal. Nick Chubb is 1+. And James Conner I have valued at less than a first round right now in Dynasty. So I thought maybe you could get more. But look, if you're trying to compete for this year, you kind of cash in the chips there, maybe. But I might wait till McCaffrey shows that he's still got it and he's the number one overall player and see if you can get more out of the deal there. That's just my view.
Always try to milk that extra bit out there. I got one more here. This one wasn't on the show sheet, but this one just came in from I'm going to say, I'm hoping it's not Carpenis J, but maybe we'll call him Carpenis J. It's a 12 sorry, you got to read it on there after you write it, but straight PPR 12 team, Dalvin Cook or Chubb and Claypool. So we're getting a lot of Chubb love here. But this is a clear pivot, in my opinion, where if you don't believe in Dalvin Cook, you're getting Chubb and Claypool. What do you guys think? This one Twitter had at a dead even 50-50, which you don't see too often.
I'm just struggling with the Carpenis and the Chubb love that you said.
I know. This was completely. I did not try this. I mean, Carpenis. I mean, I'm going to call it Carpenis, but it's definitely Carpenis.
Yeah, I kind of lost the flow there a little bit, but
I know.
No. I'll jump in. I think that Cook is still going. I mean, it looks like he's going to play this year. I still think that Minnesota needs to sign this guy, and I would go on the Cook side. I think I might get some disagreements from you guys on this, but I still have Cook in this one. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I answered the question on Twitter, and I said Chubb and Claypool at the moment, but it's kind of like what we've been talking about. As if Dalvin Cook, he's there right now. If he gets that contract, kind of like Joe Mixon, I feel like it's Dalvin Cook because, the amount of production you're going to get from Chase Claypool is a lot more unknown than the difference between Chubb and Dalvin Cook. So it's a narrative right now. Are you telling yourself in the narrative that Dalvin Cook is done in Minnesota and might hold out? Or are you telling yourself the narrative that he's going to get signed and he's going to ball out, and we tell ourselves narratives in our trades, and sometimes we want to believe them, and that's kind of how we do things.
Yeah, and I kind of been telling, maybe the narrative going on my mind right now is looking at the league, and like Henry got his deal, Eckler got a deal, Mixon just got a deal, and it's kind of setting the market value for some of these guys, and teams are, especially a team that wants to run the ball, maybe they re-up here with them. But yeah, it depends on how much risk you want to take on there. But the reward for me, if he does sign, he's clearly more valuable in Chubb in that scenario.
And where they're at contract-wise now, I mean, Kamara's saying he wants McCaffrey money, but Dalvin Cook all along said he'd be willing to settle for 12, 13 million, which is in that same realm as what Joe Mixon got. And I feel like the Vikings have to get smart here and say, well, Joe Mixon got this kind of money. This is the guy we got to pay. And they do have Madison there, which makes things quite a bit different. But I feel like both Kamara and Dalvin are going to get a deal here because both teams are teams that are playoff teams with those running backs. Without, absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't know that there's necessarily a right or wrong answer here. It's kind of like, do you want to put $20 on black or red? How are you feeling today? I guess for me, the narrative is, oh, well, why wouldn't Minnesota pay Cook, right? But that was the same mentality as like, oh, well, of course Pittsburgh's going to pay Le'Veon Bell. He's a key part of that offense. And then here we are with Bell on the Jets. And then I also think that this could be Zimmer's last year if, they don't go far in the playoffs. So is management willing to sign Cook long-term when they might be making a lot of changes this time next year? And then even if they do sign Cook, he's had a pretty well-documented injury history, so there's still that concern. And then also just the great reports out of camp for Chase Claypool with Juju Smith-Schuster, a free agent after this year. Who knows if Pittsburgh will re-sign him? In one of my recent articles a couple months ago, I compared to Claypool to potentially, sort of like a Martavis Bryant type, and we saw him get double-digit touchdowns with Ben Roethlisberger. So I actually do lean the Chubb and Claypool side on this one.
John, let me flip this here a little bit. Let's say that's Miles Sanders instead of Nick Chubb or Josh Jacobs. The idea of it, are you willing to move off Dalvin Cook if they throw Claypool? And I know you like Jacobs and Sanders, either one of those guys.
Yeah, I'd probably be a little bit more willing to do it. for Jacobs and potentially Sanders. And I think that Mung's right. This one's pretty close, and it depends on how much risk that you want to roll with. And those two options are even less risk in my mind. I mean, I think Jacobs is going to get fed the ball a ton this year, and sky's the limit. He's healthy. The question will be how much does he get out of the backfield, and then Miles Sanders, great all around back and a great offense, and they really need him. A little bit banged up, but I think they're going to build around him a little bit. And it sounds like they really want to give him the ball. So those if you're a little bit more risk averse, then definitely move Cook for one of those guys and get something packaged. For me, Claypool kind of meh for me. But I might look for something else. But yeah, I see where you're going with that, Mike, and I definitely consider that.
Well, yeah, and the idea of this episode was really to let you guys know, the listeners, obviously, that you guys can, put that hashtag smash accept, and we're going to answer your questions. We're going to put it on here and try to make this, more like every week and a half type thing to get you guys, because everybody wants them dynasty trades. And for me, running backs right now, I'm trying to pivot the best I can. I dealt Kamara for Josh Jacobs in a second. I'm making moves like that where I'm trying to reset my clock, where these guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's got 5 years on his deal tied to Mahomes, where some of these guys that are starting to approach that contract, it becomes dicey right now. And I'm a little worried about the next Leonard Fournette. The way the business is going, the way the teams are treating running backs, when it gets time to pay them, it gets to be a dicey contract holdout type negotiation. And you guys are seeing it right now firsthand. The values are starting to drop, and at least perceived value, not the talent of the running backs, but the situation, like Mung said in the beginning, situation pans out. And if you guys can do this year after year, where you move down just a little bit and add a little bit of value, and you can pick those running backs. I'm not saying do it for anybody. I'm not saying, move back just because you feel like it, but move back to get those guys that you have conviction about. Find those guys that are your guys and make those moves all day. So thanks again for coming on, guys. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and anything you guys got going on, or anything in the world in general?
Yeah. So John, thanks again for listening. You can find me at Dynasty_trades. And like I said last time, we respond to hundreds of trades, always ready to mix it up and have some fun. So definitely reach out anytime. Here to help. Mike, looking forward to coming on again sometime. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And it looks like our guy Mung just bailed on that. I think you offended him. But
sorry, Mung.
You can find him FF_Mung, spelled MENG. Guys, keep tuning in. We're going to have a lot of cool things coming out with Smash Accept. And thank you for tuning in to the Dynasty Dad podcast. Enjoy the process. Boom.